This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
And welcome to today's Talk Business and Politics. I'm Roby Brock. We are glad to have you with us. I am joined today by Representative Vivian Flowers and Sylvester Smith. They are part of our hot potato political roundtable. They're going to come in from time to time. It's good to have y'all both here today.
Thank
you so much.
Thanks
for having us, Roby.
Let's begin with impeachment. It's been a busy week in Washington, D.C. I don't know how many of you have a lot of friends up there, but I doubt that they got a whole lot done with everything that was happening there. Twofold question. I'm going to come to you first on this, Vivian.
Okay.
Was the testimony this past week in the impeachment hearings enough to persuade the public towards impeachment? Was it enough to persuade the Republicans? Because I think the Democrats are there.
I think, unfortunately, it certainly was enough. I think that what a lot of us saw and read is worse than Watergate for sure. And I think, though, we are in such a polarized political time that, I think several years ago, Trump said that he could shoot somebody on the street and he would get away with it. And I think that's the time that we're in terms of his base and his supporters. And I think that people who are saying, following the Republican talking points and believing when he says this is over, it's because that's what they want to believe.
So you think the Democrats are there, the Republicans are not. What do you think about public opinion, though, Vivian? Do you think that public opinion is there?
Yeah, and I think that that's the wrong question. I don't think it's are the Democrats, no offense, I don't think it's are the Democrats there. Is the truth there for people to believe that he should be impeached? Okay. Did he violate the law? And to those, yes and yes.
All right. Same questions to you, my friend. So is the public opinion, was there enough presented this week to move public opinion there? Was there enough presented this week to move Republicans there?
There was not enough to move public opinion in any substantial manner, and there was not enough to convince Republicans. This whole impeachment fiasco is a zero-sum game for Democrats, Roby. It's either A, an empty promise that we're going to get rid of Trump that will never be fulfilled due to the Republican numbers in the Senate, or it's B, them asking for something that they end up getting, because if you impeach Trump, then guess what? You get 9 years of Mike Pence. So I don't know what the Democrats are after here other than some bold headlines, but whatever the game is, they're going to lose in the end, Roby.
All right, well, we'll come back to political calculations. What do you think the Democrats want out of this, Vivian?
Again, I think that this is not just about the Democrats. Obviously, the Democrats are leading our leadership in the House. But I think the Democrats want what all Americans want, and that's the truth. We want...
So let me interrupt. What's your version of the truth of what happened? Summarize it for me in a paragraph.
If I had to summarize it in a paragraph, I would say that the president used his position as president to for political gain.
All right. What's your version?
Outside of the best interests of the country and our allies.
All right. Summarize for me what you think the president did or didn't do.
It's real simple. Ukraine says we want hundreds of millions of dollars. Trump says if you want the money, prove you're not an enemy. Putin says you hijacked our elections. Investigate, demonstrate it wasn't you. And also, by the way, while you're looking into this, my understanding is Joe Biden threatened a prosecutor with losing $1 billion in federal funding if he didn't stop investigating his son. Look into that and tell me what you find. Sure, it was a quid pro quo, but it was a thing for a thing that benefited
the... illegal.
No, it's not. It's a thing for a thing that benefited the American people. We have every right to get the answers to those questions, and we shouldn't be giving money to our enemies.
So why not have the Department of Justice investigate that versus asking Ukraine to investigate it on behalf of the United States of America?
My recollection of the transcript is Trump said, get your Attorney General to talk to my Attorney General, and let's look into this. That's what I remember reading in the transcript. So I think it was perfectly appropriate. Almost a perfect call, like the president said.
So that's just shocking to me. When has it ever been legal for any government official in the United States to promote another American citizen being investigated and prosecuted for something by a foreign government. Right there, you can't get around that. And at the beginning of this process, Trump denied any of it. And just like Trump, in Trump fashion, he has lied his way through this whole process like he's lied his way through his whole administration so far.
So I've seen, first of all, it's not illegal to ask a foreign entity to investigate crimes that happened on their soil, whether the culprit was an American or not. Second of all, I've seen the video of Joe Biden bragging about getting that prosecutor fired and threatening to withhold $1 billion in aid to Ukraine if the prosecutor wasn't fired. Now, maybe the prosecutor was scandalous, maybe they weren't, but that all should have been and should be investigated, and that's what the president asked for.
You gonna leave it there?
You know what? I feel like there's nothing I could say for Sylvester to look at this in terms of the rule of law, in terms of career, nonpartisan professionals who have worked in the White House administration, many of them having Republican backgrounds, who have testified against this administration, against the truth that they said was the truth. It's been total fabrication coming from that White House and the president, from Giuliani. You won't even mention that.
No, I won't mention Giuliani.
Yeah, I know you won't mention Giuliani.
I think I'm a much better lawyer than he is, so I won't mention Giuliani.
This is the idea that nothing was wrong, nothing done was wrong, and he was in his operating correctly in his role by doing what he did is a total farce. But you also won't speak to the fact that Trump has lied his way through this whole process, and you won't speak to that.
Well, I'm not going to speak to that because the transcript speaks for itself. He said, if you want the money, prove you're not an enemy.
Nobody wants to talk about how the president is how about the fact that he's had conversation, and in the same conversation where he wants to check to see whether or not that quid pro quo happened, he wants to talk about what's happening with a rapper so he can use that for political gain too.
Let me be very clear.
If we're not going to talk about this in terms of the law, in terms of the best interests of the country, going against national security leaders in this country, going against ambassadors, getting ambassadors fired because they are actually operating in the best interests of the country, and come on, Sylvester.
So let me have a brief response. Number one, quid pro quo means a thing for a thing, and it's only a crime if an elected official gets a thing of personal value to them.
Okay, so
second
are
of all,
you
hold on, let me finish.
okay.
I didn't interrupt you. Secondly, the president of the United States gets to set the foreign policy of this country, right or wrong, because people elected him. These career officials have to take a back seat to his policy objectives, and if they don't, they should be fired, ambassador or not. And just because a person is a career official doesn't mean that they don't have their own personal political agenda.
What did the fired official do?
You serve at the pleasure.
Oh, so she didn't do anything to go against the president's foreign policy.
She serves at the pleasure. And it's the president's
Okay, but you do agree
right
that she didn't do anything wrong.
Oh, I don't agree with any of that. The president has a right to get rid of whomever he wants if they serve at his pleasure.
If I could just make one more quick point.
You get one more quick point, then we take a commercial break.
Saying that there is no quid pro quo because the money was eventually given to Ukraine after the administration became aware of this investigation and became aware of the complaints is just like saying that someone who is found guilty to have started the process in selling drugs just because they didn't say, hey, yeah, I sold drugs, and you didn't catch them on camera means they shouldn't go to prison. You know that is ridiculous, and we can continue.
All right, so there's the legal arguments here, which you guys are getting to. The political arguments are Republicans were unmoved, Democrats were unmoved. We are more than likely still at a stalemate on this. History is going to be the final judge of all of this. Let's take a quick commercial break. We're back with Sylvester Smith and Representative Vivian Flowers right after this. And welcome back to the program. I'm with Representative Vivian Flowers and Sylvester Smith. All right, Sylvester, I come to you first. Our hot potato roundtable, you get to throw out the next topic.
So my topic is, will America elect a gay person or a woman person as president first?
Person.
And there's an interesting opportunity, at least on the Democratic side, where there's a homosexual gentleman running, and there are several ladies who are well seasoned, prepared to serve, that are still in the race. And so it's an interesting time, because if you look at right now, at this moment in time, Pete Buttigieg, the homosexual gentleman, is ahead in the polls in Iowa. So it may very well be, Roby, that the United States of America elects a homosexual person before it elects a woman president.
All right. What do you, the country's ready to elect a gay man, a woman, to pick whatever you want to pick? What's the mood of the country right now?
I think the mood of the country is much like the mood of the country when there were articles and conversations about whether or not the country was ready to elect a Catholic in 1960 or to elect an African American in 2008. I think that it's a
divorced person in Ronald Reagan was
exactly.
the first one, or Bill Clinton not being in the military. That was the first.
In my mind, it's a non-issue. All the articles that have cropped up says that 45% of those polled believe that we're not ready, which to me is automatically you have a majority of Americans who believe that we are. But then ironically, 76% of Americans say that they would vote for someone who is homosexual. In my mind, that has nothing to do with whether or not we're ready. That means that a lot of folks recognize and probably believe that there's more division in the country than there really is.
I'll throw my personal opinion out there. If you're 35 years old, natural-born American citizen, lived here for 14 years, that's about the only qualification you need to have. If you can make a compelling argument of your vision for America to get elected, I think this country is ready to elect anybody that meets those basic requirements and can move people to the polls, or at least get a majority in the Electoral College. How about that?
Or how about just getting somebody who tells the truth?
Oh, that's you went there. We weren't even talking about the truth there. So.
Well, yeah, we don't. We
did
too
in the
often
first
don't
block
talk
there.
about the
we
truth.
did in the first block. All right. Second subject in our hot potato roundtable is yours, Vivian.
Yes, I felt like I could not come on this show today and not highlight, I think, a very serious issue, and that is the real epidemic of women of color, particularly African American women, who go missing without the benefit of the kind of support from communities, support from law enforcement, support from the media to draw attention and to solve these crimes.
Why do you think that does not? Why do you think that there's a difference?
So let me say this. I just started reading about it. I'm not sure why it is, and I wouldn't. I don't want to begin to try and guess, but I do know that it's a problem. Mm-hmm. I do know that while African Americans comprise 16% of the population, women in particular comprising 8% of the population, we comprise 40% of missing women and girls. And when you think about the names of folks in your mind in the history who have been missing, whether it's Elizabeth Smart, John Benet Ramsey, how many black women and black girls are etched in your mind as having been missing and found, or having been missing and their bodies found and families got closure? And the bottom line to all of this, too, is about awareness and about public safety. That is the very first role of government, is to protect your people. And if we are overlooking, when it comes to getting public support and using the Amber Alert for all children, allowing parents having a breaking news moment into your favorite sitcom for black parents to be able to speak to their teenage daughter or their daughter who's missing, communities coming together for a search. That hasn't been happening. And if we know that a majority of these crimes have gone unsolved for women of color, it's a problem that we need to pay attention to.
Sylvester?
I totally agree. This is a key issue, and if we are going to be a country where we say all lives matter, then we need to get behind these families, and we need to support them and do all that we can to try to get them some closure and hopefully get them some positive outcomes. I'll challenge African American viewers who are watching this that we as a community have got to value our wives, our mothers, our daughters, our sisters more than anyone else. And we've got to step forward, we've got to cooperate with the police, and we've got to really put the word out there and do any and everything we have to do to help these women find their way home.
I would take issue, I think that's a given. And I think that making that kind of statement on the heels of drawing attention to the fact that attention is not paid by authorities almost suggests that that's part of the problem too. People, when people's children are missing, people call the authorities. People want immediate action. People want the press to say, oh my God, let's put it out on social media. Let's do a breaking news. That has nothing to do with...
If I can respond to that. The people whose immediate family are impacted, they do. But far too often, people of color who are not related to these folks say, well, I don't want anything to do with it. I don't want to come to court. I don't want to have to talk to law enforcement. And we've got to get beyond it.
Where do you find that information
When we get off camera, I can show you some video of that
we on
occurring.
camera, so let's talk about it now.
So it is a real phenomenon, Vivian, and it's something that we need to be honest about in our community. I'm for holding everybody accountable. And I'm not saying, let me be very clear, I'm not saying that the media doesn't give this enough attention, because they don't. I'm not saying that sometimes law enforcement don't shuffle these files to the back, because sometimes they do. I'm challenging everybody. Every one of us can do better to address this issue.
I got a time constraint that we'll take this off air and continue to talk about this. It's a thoughtful subject. I appreciate you bringing it to our attention.
Thanks.
Thank you for your contributions as well. Sylvester Smith, Representative Vivian Flowers, appreciate you. All right, we're back with more right after this.